Good morning, New Brunswick, and welcome to the New Brunswick Today Show for this morning, May the 5th, 2017. We've got a very special show for you with a very special guest. As you might know, the New Jersey governor election is coming up. The primary race is going to be on June the 6th, and there are 6 candidates on the ballot for the Democrats. We have one of them with us today. He's a legendary New Jersey politician, Senator Ray Lesniak. This is him, and he will be joining us in just a moment. He is running for the state's highest office, trying to replace the disgraced Governor Christie, who's on his way out. And there's also 5 Republican candidates that are going to be on the ballot, and a number of folks who are trying to run as independents. And we have invited all of them on the show. We are pleased to tell you that Senator Lesniak is the first of several candidates that you'll be seeing on this program right here as we broadcast live from the Hidden Grounds Espresso Bar here on Easton Avenue, right near the New Brunswick train station. It is a crummy day in New Brunswick, but if you're in the area, a great day to stop by here, get a cup of the best coffee in town, and say hi to Alana and Chris, who will be here to help you, and come say hi to the New Brunswick Today team and Senator Lesniak. But before we go any further, do us a favor, do your friends a favor, do yourself a favor, and do what I'm doing right now. Go on the New Brunswick Today Facebook page and share this video with your friends so that they can watch the interview, our first of a series of interviews with the candidates that want to be the highest public official in New Jersey, candidates seeking governor. We'll be right back with Senator Raymond Lesniak. While we bring him out here, take a look at his campaign video. This is the when he announced his campaign earlier this year. We'll be right back with Senator.
I'm Senator Raymond Lesniak, and I'm running for the Democratic nomination for governor to make New Jersey affordable, to give the public a voice and a vote in government, and to improve the quality of life of our residents. 35 years ago, I watched drums of toxic waste explode into the air on Front Street in Elizabeth, just a few blocks from where I was born, creating a toxic plume across the sky. That inspired me to sponsor the most effective environmental protection laws in the country, to track toxic waste, and to require chemical companies to clean up the sites they contaminate. I also sponsored New Jersey's Clean Air Act, the Safe Drinking Water Act, and the Environmental Cleanup Responsibility Act, which has cleaned up tens of thousands of contaminated sites throughout New Jersey. When Exxon and the petrochemical industry refused to pay into that cleanup fund, I took them to federal court and made them pay. I'm now in court challenging Governor Christie's sellout with Exxon. After more than 100 years of damage to our streams, our waterways, wetlands, and marshlands which protect us from storm surges, the governor settled a $9 billion claim for pennies on the dollar. I'll take this case to the Supreme Court if necessary to make Exxon pay more, a lot more. These environmental protection laws, which protect you and your family's health and well-being, were fiercely opposed, but I got them through both houses of the legislature and signed into law. I'm a fighter. I've sponsored criminal justice reforms that have significantly reduced our prison population and gave nonviolent drug offenders treatment in place of prison. When Senator Weinberg and I sponsored same-sex marriage, we were only able to get 13 of 24 Democratic votes in favor. Now marriage equality is the law of the land. I've sponsored legislation to prevent animal cruelty, like my legislation banning puppy mills from doing business in New Jersey. As a legislator, I've received state, national, and international awards for environmental protection, criminal justice reform, LGBT rights, and animal welfare. But only a governor can restructure and reform government to make New Jersey affordable for our residents. Go to rayforgov.com/waste to see how billions of your tax dollars can be saved. And while you're there, sign up to support my campaign. You can offer your support in many ways. This is a grassroots campaign. Please go to rayforgov.com and sign up now to volunteer. make a contribution, or to see my record and my vision for the future of our state. I need your help. Thank you.
And welcome back to the New Brunswick Today Show. I'm now joined by Senator Ray Lesniak. Thanks so much for joining us.
Well,
How's the
good
campaign?
morning. The campaign is good, and so is the coffee here.
Indeed,
excellent.
it is.
I endorse it.
Well, welcome to New Brunswick. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
You've been doing politics since before I was born. Tell me, I want to know about how you got into it and a
Sure.
little bit about how it was back in the old days. It's probably significantly different than today, right?
First of all, a lot different than today. I mean, we actually worked together, Democrats and Republicans. We tried to solve problems instead of making these. And this is one of the reasons why I'm running for governor. I just got fed up with Governor Christie making deals with the Democratic leadership that are not in the public's interest. But to answer your question, I got out of law school, and even though I graduated with honors.
Okay, you're a Rutgers alum?
No,
Right.
well, undergraduate.
Okay.
But then I graduated St. John's Law School with honors, but I did not know what I wanted to do. As a matter of fact, when my mother, when I told my mother I was going to law school, she accused me of going to law school to avoid working for a living. Of course, my dad had to quit school in the 8th grade to support his family.
Wow.
But I made it to law school thanks to the GI Bill. I played accordion on weekends. I'm Grammy nominated.
You mentioned this. You had a
Grammy
polka album.
album that's Grammy nominated. We didn't win, but that distinguishes me from the other candidates, that's for sure. In any event, my mom talked me into going to a Democratic club meeting. I went there and I got hooked. I just got involved in politics. I just loved the issues, the challenges, and in a couple of years I was in the Assembly, and I've been in the legislature ever since.
Wow. And so you come from Elizabeth.
Yes.
It's the 4th biggest city in New Jersey.
Correct.
Very interesting place, interesting politics. Tell us, did you have to fight your way into the the power structure there?
You think? As a matter of fact,
How'd you do it?
Hard work, nose to the grindstone, door to door, working with my friends. I beat the Democratic organization, and I beat them badly, handily. And that's what I expect to do in this gubernatorial election, because the entire Democratic organization has endorsed Phil Murphy, who has millions of dollars to get that endorsement. But I have the people. That's why I'm here. I'm here to connect with the public, to get them out to vote, and we'll have someone who really just fights for the public, and not these political leaders who have teamed up with Christie all too often.
Right on. So you mentioned the front runner in the race,
Yes,
Phil
I
Murphy.
did.
What do you think are the biggest things that separates you and him in terms of your policies, what you would actually do?
Well, first of all, he's done nothing in his life other than make a lot of money for Goldman Sachs. He's been an ambassador to Germany. How do you become an ambassador? You write a lot of checks to Democratic candidates, and that's how he's gotten there. So I have a record. I have a record of fighting and winning. I sponsored the most significant environmental protection laws in the country that have cleaned up thousands of contaminated dump sites. And when the petrochemical industry said, well, we don't have to pay Lesniak surcharge because we now have this federal superfund that preempts it, I took him to court. Lesniak versus the United States, and I beat him. And I'm going to beat him again. I'm challenging Christie's $225 million settlement of a $9.2 billion case. So I'm going to beat him again. Phil Murphy doesn't have any of that record to begin with. I have a landmark women's rights case, Ponter versus Ponter. When I started off as a legal services attorney representing poor folks, and I had a client, Mrs. Ponter, who had been separated from her husband for 10 years. She didn't even know where he was. She wanted a sterilization operation, and doctors wouldn't do it. And I said, well, what about Roe versus Wade, women's right to choose? Doctors said, well, that was about abortion. She wants a sterilization operation. She needs her husband's consent. She doesn't know where her husband is. Sorry, we can't do it. I went to court, and I got a ruling that went beyond Roe versus Wade. It said a woman has a right to choose any medical procedure over her body, and it's no one else's choice but her. Again, Phil Murphy hasn't done anything like that. I have. In the United States, we have 25% of the world's prisoners, but 5% of the world's population. Not in New Jersey. I've reduced the prison population in New Jersey by 50% for drug offenses, by doing away with mandatory minimum sentences that really targeted minorities, blacks and Hispanics. And I got involved in that one morning, 2:30 in the morning. I woke up and two guys were standing over my bed in Elizabeth. Antoine Neal and Bernard Kinney. And the first words I heard were, "Shoot him." That was Antoine Neal. And then Bernard Kinney said something that stuck with me to this very day. He said, "Stay cool, we're not going to hurt you." But then he said, "We're good people. We're just in a bad place right now." And he didn't say we're not bad people. He said we're good people. We're just in a bad place. They were strung out on crack cocaine. They desperately needed another fix. They took my money, didn't harm me. Got caught within a few days because it was in all the press, and so everyone knew about it.
Right.
I went and I testified on their behalf. I testified on their behalf to get them into drug court treatment for their addiction instead of going to prison, where they wouldn't get any treatment at all. They'd come out worse than they went in. And I didn't do it because I'm a nice guy. I did it because I didn't want them standing over my bed years later, or yours or anybody else's. So criminal justice reform has been a major part of what I've already accomplished. None of the other candidates have done anything of that sort. One last thing.
Sure.
Marriage equality, same-sex marriage. I sponsored same-sex marriage along with Senator Weinberg. We got 13 of 24 Democrats to vote for it the first time. 13 of 24 Democrats.
Barely half.
Barely half of Democrats.
Right.
You know, the fact that it was unpopular at that time didn't matter to me. It was the right thing to do, and I was proud to have hosted the first same-sex marriage in my home a few years later. So these are things that I've already done. In New Jersey, we have a fiscal crisis. We have a mass transit system that's in shambles. We have a stagnant economy. We need bold action. We need somebody who has taken on these challenges and overcome them. Believe me, defeating the petrochemical industry was not easy, particularly in those days. So what distinguishes me is I've taken on these challenges, and I'll solve those problems that I've talked about.
So I've been asking all the candidates the same two questions, and
Okay.
you actually, I already asked on Twitter. You were one of the few that got back to me. I asked, whether you think Donald Trump, Chris Christie, both or neither ought to be impeached. And you gave me an answer with Christie. You said you're in the Senate, so it would be up to you to decide if he
Correct.
is taken to an impeachment trial. So you said it wouldn't be right for you to comment. But with Trump, you said, as a lawyer, I would want to hear and see sworn evidence presented before you answer. That was a few weeks ago. Have you seen anything yet that makes you think the president should be impeached?
Do I think he should, based on what I think he's done? Yes. But again, I'm a lawyer. I need real hard evidence. That hasn't come out. I'm not sure it'll ever come out because Congress is not interested in finding these things out. Maybe the FBI will. I hope he's impeached. That's for sure, because he's doing great damage to our country.
Agreed. So I was going to ask you some of your biggest accomplishments. You already kind of outlined them, the environmental advocacy,
Sure.
In particular taking big corporations to court.
Right.
Tell us about the role that like you say, the petrochemical industry plays in Union County. I know There's a lot of facilities they have there, and there's been a lot of contamination and pollution.
Sure.
Tell us about the history of that.
Yeah, well, actually, and you saw in my campaign video, barrels of toxic waste exploded. That was 2 blocks from where I was born.
Wow.
In Elizabeth. And we had no regulations, no tracking system. I established that. Actually, it was dominated by organized crime, solid and hazardous waste disposal industry. And Elizabeth was the focal point. We had Johnny Riggy, the head of the entire crime family, organized crime family in New Jersey, in Elizabeth. I took him on, and I established, it's still referred to as A901.
Okay.
It's a licensing procedure that drove organized crime out of that entire
the
industry.
solid waste business.
Yeah, and hazardous
exactly.
waste. So not only did I take on the petrochemical industry and win, I took on organized crime, the mob, and won. So I'm fearless, and that's what we need. We need a fearless leader because we have these problems. Well, I like to talk about the future, my plans, but do you mind if I do that?
Please. What are your plans for that?
Well, the biggest thing for me is growing our economy,
Okay.
creating jobs. And I have a New Jersey Grow Healthy program that will create jobs in solar and wind and technology and energy efficiency that will start with stopping the 4 pipelines that Christie has planned.
Sure.
Those are gas and oil pipelines. If we allow those to continue, we will be dependent on fossil fuel for another century. My goal is to make New Jersey fossil fuel free by 2050. And there are thousands of jobs that go along with that, and good jobs. And whereas you build a pipeline, you have construction jobs, and then it's basically over. With solar and wind and energy efficiency and installers and the technology that keeps advancing, Germany's almost there. And there's another reason for New Jersey to be in favor of my plan. We're at ground zero for climate change. There's a report that just came out that within 50 years, if something doesn't change, 20% of New Jersey is going to be underwater. So we need to be very concerned with that. We need a governor. Look, we can't do it all, obviously, but we need a governor who's going to lead on that, and I will lead on that as a cornerstone of my campaign, and I'll take that to every state to get other states involved so that we can save New Jersey and, by the way, reduce pollution. 200,000 people in America die every year, MIT study, because of pollution. Okay, so part of the program is investing in mass transit. We again, Democrats and Republicans alike, just announced an investment in light rail for $1 billion up in Bergen County that's going to lose, by their estimate now, it's going to lose $14 million a year. New Jersey Transit needs that $1 billion. People aren't getting to work.
The existing infrastructure is failing.
That's where we need to focus on. We have to have a world-class mass transit system to complete my entire New Jersey Grow Healthy program.
Agreed, and certainly, the energy stuff is going to be a big part of the infrastructure is what's going to provide energy.
Yes.
But I think the big thing that everybody forgets about is the water infrastructure. Tell me what are you going to do to make sure that folks are getting clean water from their taps?
First of all, let me tell you what I've already done.
Okay.
You asked me what Murphy's done, and a big fat zero. Let me tell you what I already did. And again, I had to fight the water companies for this, believe it or not. I passed the Safe Drinking Water Act that established testing requirements for contamination that never existed before. And I also established the Drinking Water Quality Institute to continue. It's a scientific body. As science advances, you find out what other contaminants are harmful. And it worked great until Christie got into office.
Like so much of
Exactly. So there were 12 contaminants that this scientific body said are in our water supply now. We should test for it and make sure that it doesn't get into the tap. Christie hasn't done a thing about it. But on the infrastructure part of it, we have to have a huge bond issue. We have to pay for both sewer and water lines because that's crumbling.
Right.
And again, everyone's avoiding it. I don't avoid any of these problems. We have to hit them head on, and I will.
Okay. You mentioned kind of reducing the prison population,
Yes.
that the drug war obviously hurt a lot of people, a lot of families. What do you think about marijuana? Should it be
Sure.
legal? Or
When we talk about that, it's not an easy question to answer. And by the way, I have a recovery school, a public recovery school.
Yes, we wrote about it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of my proudest things that I've ever been involved in. The Raymond J. Lesniak Experience, Strength, and Hope Recovery High School. It's for kids with substance use disorder. Mm-hmm. Indeed, our first graduate finished her first year at Rutgers this year.
That's wonderful.
And she's going to intern in my office over the summer. So I'm so proud of that. So I approached legalized marijuana very with caution, because while it is not a gateway drug for most people, it is certainly for some, and it is even more so for young folks. So I wanted to see all the evidence before we went forward with it, and you're going to report on it here first, because I'm the only candidate who has not taken a position in favor of legalized marijuana. I believe in decriminalization, but not legalization because of the concern that I have for it impacting our youth. I've studied this Canadian study that they've studied Colorado in depth. Canada is going to legalize marijuana in 2018. Mm-hmm. And there's an infrastructure that's going to take about a year to develop to make sure that there's no advertising for youth, there's no inducements like with candy-coated marijuana and things like that. And you need an entire infrastructure to have these regulations and enforcement in place. So if Canada's going to have it in 2018, it doesn't make sense for New Jersey not to. So I am now in favor of it as long as it has the tight regulations that Canada has. I will support it. I will cite it into law. And
so you heard it here first.
You heard it here first. Exactly. Yes.
Legalized and regulated.
Regulated. And here's what I wanted to say. It's not the money bonanza that it's not going to balance our budget. It annoys me when people say that. You know, yeah, legalize marijuana, we're going to be able to balance the budget. Colorado's net gross revenue is 160 million. Certainly in New Jersey, I think the estimate is 300 million. But that doesn't count all the cost of the infrastructure and the regulation. They probably net about 50 million. We'll probably net 100 million, maybe less. That's not chump change, but it's not a reason to do it unless it's strictly regulated, and that's what I'll do.
Okay.
So there it is. You got a scoop.
Thank you, sir. And so another big issue that is really causing a lot of folks grief is you mentioned briefly the transportation infrastructure,
Yes.
the trains. What's your plan? What are you doing?
You know I'm a big animal lover. You know that.
As a matter of fact, that's
We have
the
to
first
talk
issue
about
on your website.
Okay. All right. So I voted against the gas tax increase.
Right.
Even though I had a gas tax 10 years ago, I introduced it. As a matter of fact,
You're not against the concept.
Exactly. If we had passed my 15-cent tax years ago, we wouldn't have any problems now. But what was in this gas tax increase was what I call a pork panel. And that's why the governor, the Senate president, and the Assembly Speaker have a veto power over any project that goes forward. Mm-hmm. So one of them has a pet project. It may lose money, but the guys want it. But I have a project that's really good, this is going to improve our mass transit. We're going to invest in New Jersey transit. Well, you can't have that because I'll veto it unless you do. That's exactly what's happening now.
Okay.
So that was the main reason why I voted against it. There were other revenue losses involved in it. So I would eliminate that immediately and make sure that the priority is investing in mass transit, fixing our New Jersey transit system.
Okay, and tell me how the whole ARC tunnel played into how we got to where we are,
Sure.
and what you think is going to happen with the gateway plan.
Yeah, biggest mistake that Governor Christie ever made. That would have taken 30,000 cars off the road.
Right, and improved property values in all the towns that would have gained a one-seat ride.
Exactly. Biggest mistake he's ever made, and that's why we have to be. Now, I know there's this federal program for the Gateway Project. I don't know that we can ever rely now with Donald Trump. There are good terms that we could that we can afford. So we have to make sure that our transportation money is spent wisely, and make sure that that tunnel is imperative. It's imperative for our security. Knock out the one tunnel, and you're going to knock out the economy along the whole East Coast for a long time, and it's a big target. So the biggest mistake Christie ever made was killing that tunnel. You know what the second biggest mistake he made?
What was that?
Demonizing teachers.
Sure.
It gets down into the classroom. The kids know, they see it, they feel it. They don't have respect for the teachers. If the governor doesn't have respect for teachers, they're not going to have respect for teachers. And if teachers don't have respect, they're not going to be able to really communicate well with their students. Now, I've studied education systems throughout the world. What pops out for me is Finland and Poland. And that's where, and their performance obviously is very, very, very high. But it's because their teachers are treated as professionals. They're in the entire society, and they're allowed to teach. They're not told that this test, you have to take this test, and to graduate, you have to take this test. Teachers are allowed to use their skills within their classroom and within their school, and they perform well. That's what I would do, and I would bring back respect into the classroom for the teachers.
So I want to ask you about, one of the things that led to Governor Christie being in power was some of these unelected Democrat bosses who cut deals with it. Well,
well, that's my problem. You're right.
I want to ask you about those bosses and the role that they play influencing legislation. Sure. I mean, obviously you were a colleague with Senator Lynch.
Yes. Senator Lynch was a good leader.
Okay.
Senator Lynch was a great leader. The problem we had, and the reason why I'm running for governor now, is that those same bosses, and I'm a mini boss. I was a big boss.
You used to be a big boss.
I was with John Lynch.
Right,
and we got good things done.
Okay. But I mean, what would you say, for instance, about people who say that, John Lynch was corrupt? He got caught, he got sent to jail.
Didn't make him a bad legislator, though.
Okay.
It made him a politician who did something wrong and went to jail for it. But if you look at his body of work, putting that aside, his body of work was great. It was excellent. But in any event, right now, what we have is the party bosses lining up with Phil Murphy. As a matter of fact, my Democratic chair, county chair, trying to talk me out of running, said, "Ray, we're going to get whatever we want from Phil Murphy for 8 years. Whatever we want for 8 years. Why are you running?" That made me more determined to run.
I got you.
More determined to run. So the deals that are going down, like, by the way, I killed the book deal.
Yes.
I killed the book deal. I'm going to kill this State House project that went from $38 million to $300 million, and now it's $700 million. I'll be in court next week to stop that. And these are only happening because those party folks who endorsed Christie are teaming up with him to get all the goodies and hurting the public.
It's the same folks that basically got Christie in.
Absolutely.
And how much does this remind you of Corzine?
Phil Murphy has been compared to John Corzine.
Of course.
That does a disservice to John Corzine. John Corzine would never have done what Phil Murphy's doing. Phil Murphy is putting political leaders, operatives on his payroll for $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 a month. It's absolutely obscene. It's basically buying the election, trying to buy the election.
And he's got all the county support.
Of course,
He's got the line.
That's right. We're going to get whatever we want from Phil Murphy for 8 years, and that's what he's telling everybody. And that's why I'm here, because I have to communicate with the public, and the public is not going to stand for it. I'm confident of that. Did you have a question that I didn't answer?
No, but
you talked about John Corzine.
Yeah, but
yeah.
I do have one very specific bill
Sure.
that I want to talk to you about. This was sponsored by your running mate, your, I guess now former running mate, Annette Quijano.
Okay.
And this was a bill that seemed to be inspired by something that happened in New Brunswick, and I was sort of involved. I was an organizer on a ballot question campaign. We got a question on the ballot to have a ward system for the elections here. So each neighborhood had a representative.
It's now
it's been at large since 1915.
Okay.
Folks have been trying to change it for a while. I was part of that movement. We got the question on the ballot in 2009. It narrowly lost. But then after that, Annette Quijano introduced a bill that made it so if a question is put on the ballot and fails, you can't have it on ballot again for 10 years, which the old law was that it was like 3 or 4 years.
It doesn't have my support.
And-
She didn't clear that one with me.
Well, did you vote for it?
In the Senate?
Yeah, it passed. It's the law now, and
My God.
it's a bad bill. And we tried to
You know,
lobby, and we tried to and she couldn't explain why. So
How come you didn't get in touch with me? That
Well, I
may
didn't-
very well have slipped by. It does. Things
it
do
was
slip by.
actually the last thing Corzine did before he left office. With just 10 minutes to go in his term, he signed it. So
Yeah.
will you support?
That's my bad.
Okay.
I would feel it.
So you'll support the bill to overturn that?
Absolutely.
Great. Thank you very much. I want to ask. I know you've been a big champion for Rutgers Athletics. That's
yes.
your one of your big sources of pride is the athletics program. We joined the Big Ten a few years ago.
Yes.
It was a little rocky.
Yes.
There's been lots of scandals. I know that President Barchi likes to say that we're getting all sorts of free publicity, but a lot of that publicity is negative. What do you think about the athletics program and what it's done for Rutgers?
Okay. First of all, the moving into the Big Ten was a huge help for Rutgers, and moving into the Big Ten had nothing to do with the scandals that started before that. The key issue is who's running, the right people running the program. I have a lot of faith in Pat Hobbs now. Pat's a close friend of mine, but he was also law school dean in Seton Hall. He chaired the SCI investigative committee. He's going to run a tight ship.
Okay.
So the problem is we didn't have the right leadership. But yes, I mean, what I did was when everybody was against investing in Rutgers Athletics.
Like facilities specifically.
Yes,
Yeah.
Collingsworth, or one of the professors, the economics professors, which I said he doesn't know simple math, or because I had a real study done by eConsult. Yes, that showed all of the benefits that come to the university and the state from a Big Ten quality program, and we're going to see it. We're starting to see it. It's not going to happen overnight, but we had to make these investments to get the results. And yes, we do get great, but the publicity that we've gotten on TV is great. If you watch any Big Ten game, it talks about Rutgers academics. And don't forget, we're 60th best university in the world. And most of the Big Ten universities are on that top 100 list. That's where we should be as well, and that's where we are, and we'll move up as a result.
Okay, and so by now you must know the Rutgers president pretty well.
I do. As a matter of fact, I take credit for getting him to change his position on investing in Rutgers facilities, because I sent him a letter, and it was in the paper, and it said, President Barchi, we're in the Big Ten, act like it. And that got his attention. Obviously, the e-consult report got his attention because I got a $25 million tax credit for the facilities. I could not have gotten that through the legislature without an economic study that showed that this is a tremendous, this investment will return great returns for Rutgers. We're already seeing a higher quality student in terms of their applications. We're seeing more. We were so low in terms of alumni contributions. You know, that's
fundraising. Yeah.
Yes, that's exploding as well. So I only see good things ahead.
Okay, so you think just generally that the president's done a good job with the the academics? I think a lot of a lot of the students feel that they're being crammed into larger and larger classes. The buses and the housing are not in great shape.
I understand that, but he does have a 10-year capital plan. That's moving along as well. This is not just about athletics, and it's also not just about football or basketball. We have I think 24 programs for athletics, men and women. So it's going to benefit all those programs. I think athletics is a significant part of academic experience.
Okay. So last question I want to ask you is about New Brunswick and what you would do for New Brunswick if you're elected. New Brunswick's an important and special place. Well,
as usual.
What have you done for New Brunswick, and what will you do?
Well, I've
for
created tax credits for some of the new jobs and
the redevelopment
companies.
projects. Yeah.
Yes, I've created tax credits for those.
The EDA stuff. Right?
Exactly. That's all my doing. Actually, in addition to New Brunswick, or including New Brunswick, it's created 70,000 permanent jobs, 70,000 construction jobs. So that's working well. I don't think we have to do anything more than that except tighten it up. But again, New Brunswick is a learning center. So if we create my New Jersey Grow Healthy program, which is going to be high tech and high education investment, the need to have the scientific basis and the students, the student body, and the professors, New Brunswick can only benefit from that as well.
Okay. Well,
and a better mass transit system. You have a pretty good one here.
We really do need some improvements with that.
But it could be a lot better. It's not as bad as what we experience up north.
Okay.
That's a disaster.
Where, Elizabeth or?
In Newark.
Okay.
But by the way, everyone's affected because if there's a slowdown up there's going to be a slowdown down here. So
Sure.
we have investing in mass transit will certainly help the New Brunswick population.
All right. Well, Senator Lesniak, thank you so much for joining us today. Good luck with the campaign. We hope to have you on again soon.
Fantastic. All right. Go to rayforgov.com, volunteer, and vote for Ray.
All right. Thanks so much, everybody, for watching. We'll be back on Monday with another governor candidate, Mr. Bill Brennan, and then again next Friday with another governor candidate, Mr. Mark Zinna. So please join us for both of those shows. And to all the other candidates, you could be here too. So please reach out and join us as well. Thanks again, Senator Lesniak. Good luck.
Well, thanks for
watching.
having me. Thank you.